but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you.
Good morning, welcome along to NUFC Matters Tuesday morning. Brings us Ross Gregory. Good morning, Ross.
Morning, Steve. Morning, everyone.
Good to see you, mate. And as always, we're here to talk about Newcastle United for an hour and plenty to talk about, even though there hasn't been a game this weekend. And let's start with a Harry Kane story that Stu mentioned on the Professionals on Sunday. Talk about Harry Kane potentially coming to Newcastle, next season. Is that something that you could see happening? Is that something that you would welcome?
I would welcome it. I would absolutely 100% welcome it. I think he's a fantastic player. I think he's arguably in the top 3 strikers in the world at the minute in terms of what he does and the way that he plays in terms of, I suppose being an out and out goal scorer. There's not many better in the world at the minute, Steve, for me. He's an old-fashioned number 9, but he's also somebody who can drop into that 10 role and create goals and link the play. And I personally think he's an absolutely phenomenal player. Interesting, Steve. I was at Wembley on Sunday. Went down with my lad to watch the England game, and on the way back, we had a conversation. He's 20, so he's not seen. He never saw Shearer at his pomp, at his best. He was only 2 or 3 when Alan retired, so never saw him at his best. He's obviously seen the clips and everything. So he asked me on the drive home on Sunday night, where is Kane better than Shearer? Because we were raving about Kane, like his movement, his touch, everything in the game on Sunday was outstanding. And he said, how do you rate him compared to Shearer? Obviously, I saw him. Shearer play a lot of games in the flesh and on TV and everything else like that. So, and I think Kane's as close to Alan Shearer as there can be. I think I think Shearer still has the edge. I think in terms of all round play and leadership and everything else like that. And bear in mind all the injuries that he had and all that sort of stuff. Alan Shearer was a phenomenal player. But Harry Kane is outstanding for me. He's absolutely outstanding. He's not far off being England's best ever striker, in my opinion. I know I put a poll on Twitter, and obviously Newcastle fans have all jumped on it. A lot of Sunderland fans as well, saying that they think Shearer's better than Kane. But I've gone slightly off topic with that one, I suppose. But what I'm trying to show for me is how much I rate Harry Kane. I think he will break Shearer's Premier League record. I think he'll go down in history as one of the all-time greats. He's obviously got the England record now. Would he ever come to Newcastle? I don't think so, personally. I think if he does move to Spurs, move from Spurs, he will want to go somewhere where I think he's probably guaranteed to win a title or 2 within the next 2 or 3 years. So it'll be maybe it's a City or a Man United or something like that. The real kind of proper title challengers, and we know that Newcastle have got aims and ambitions to get there the next 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it is. But Kane's probably only got 3 or 4 years left at the top, and he needs trophies. So if he does move from Spurs, I would expect there to be a clamour for his signature, and I'd expect him to go to maybe, like I say, maybe he's not City now that Haaland's signed for them, but whether it be Man United or even abroad. There'll be a lot of teams who will want him. He's an absolutely phenomenal player. I would love to see him in a black and white shirt, breaking Shearer's record in a Newcastle shirt. But I don't think it'll happen personally, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, it's a story which we broke on the channel through Stu Penman. He'd had a phone call from someone who he's a good contact, and said that there's certainly negotiations taking place, but there's no guarantees that is a transfer that's going to go through. And I brought it up on the fans forum last night. The proposed move to Manchester City fell flat, because Levy, essentially wouldn't accept the offer on the table. He clearly felt that he wanted more to lose his prize asset. And, there's no doubt that he'll have depreciated Kane slightly since that last, all footballers do. The price does eventually go down, but judging by Levy's animosity towards Newcastle's takeover, I couldn't imagine him wanting to do business with Newcastle, especially with Newcastle, battling them out for Champions League places at this moment in time.
Oh yeah, 100%. Newcastle are a real direct threat now to Spurs. Where Spurs have been over the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years, in terms of battling and challenging for Champions League places, in terms of getting to a Champions League final and all that sort of stuff. That they've almost been guaranteed a top 4, top 5 place, and now that's under real threat from Newcastle. So Spurs absolutely wouldn't want to sell Harry Kane to a rival like Newcastle. They wouldn't want to sell him to anybody, to be honest. And it has. I know I've talked a bit about Alan Shearer. It has real echoes of Shearer as well. Kane, he's at his boyhood club. He spent all his career there. Obviously, Alan Shearer didn't spend all his career at Newcastle, but came back when he had lots of other options and wanted to win something for his hometown club and become a legend at St James's Park. And Harry Kane's, it's very similar. He's dedicated pretty much all his career to Spurs and trying to get them trophies. And for Spurs to sell him, Daniel Levy or whoever is in charge of Spurs at that time would know they would have a major backlash on their hands from the fans if they got rid of Alan Shearer, certainly to a domestic rival as well. They know that their standing, their stature within not just within the fan base, but also within the rest of the playing community. If you're selling your best player, if you're selling your golden boy, what does that say for you as a club, Spurs? So they'll be absolutely desperate to hang on to him. They'll put blocks in the way whereby it might be huge transfer fees that put people off. He will depreciate in value as the older he gets, but he's still for me, he's still probably got 5 years left at the top. The way that he plays, the way that he adapts his game. So I think anybody who wants to prize him away from Spurs will have to pay a huge fee and huge personal demands as well, but also guarantee him titles, guarantee him silverware, because that's the only thing that's missing off his CV is trophies, is silverware. He's got pretty much everything else on his CV. He will end his career with all sorts of goal scoring records, but will he end it with trophies? I think that'll be very much forefront of Harry Kane's mind if and when he decides to leave Spurs. And Ali said White Hart Lane there.
You did, yeah. John Askew says, morning. Does the predictable outcome at Spurs reduce our top 4 chances? And how fortunate are we to have a manager of Eddie's temperament and tact? To have the right football knowledge and know-how is obviously important for a team manager, but our attitude and people management skills more significant for a club's prospects on the pitch. So, double-barreled question from John. I don't think it affects our chances too much. I think we just stay in our own lane, concentrate on what we're doing, Ross. And the results will take care of themselves. I think, Spurs have got rid of Conte. Clearly that, the decision was made more by Conte, I think, than Levy, with these outbursts at his last press conference. But they've chosen to stick with the men in reserve, if you like, till the end of the season, and then make an appointment in the summer. So I'm not sure how that's going to go down well in the dressing room. But as I say, Newcastle just need to focus on winning the games in hand, continuing to put the performances in, get the performances, and the rest should take care of itself, I would have said.
Yeah, I think you're right, Steve. I think Newcastle just need to focus on what they're doing and keep the focus on their performances, on their results, on the way they're playing, and the rest will hopefully look after itself. I think if Spurs had kept Antonio Conte until the end of the season, I think they probably would have. I wouldn't have put any money on them hitting the top 4. I think they would have. There's obviously a lot of upheaval there. There's a lot of animosity and uncertainty and everything else. That it was an absolutely astonishing outburst by Conte and almost, like you said, signed his own resignation letter with that. There was no real way that he could stay in charge there. The interesting one is that they've put Christian Stellini in as caretaker manager along with Ryan Mason until the end of the season. It does guarantee a little bit of stability, I suppose, and a little bit of continuity. Stellini's done really well when Conte has had absences through illness and his operation and whatnot. And Stellini stepped in and done really well and guided them to a number of victories. So I think it's probably in hindsight it's a good move to remove Conte from the changing room and that whole dynamic, but keep a little bit of continuity in with his assistant Stellini. But for Spurs, it'll all be down to how they manage to bounce back from this kind of fortnight that they've had. Keeping Harry Kane fit, getting goals from elsewhere, from your Sons and your Kulusevskis and those, and Richarlison when he gets himself back fit. They've got a lot of really, really good players in there. As Newcastle are in pole position though. If Newcastle win the games, Newcastle will qualify for top four regardless of what happens at Spurs. So it's an interesting one, and it's going to make it for an interesting summer when Conte when Spurs look to finally replace Conte. On the second part of the question, I think we can't praise Eddie Howe too highly. He's level-headed. He knows how to handle media. He's very tactful. He's not going to be prone to emotional outbursts like Antonio Conte had. He's obviously got the group of players playing for him and buying into his methods, and that obviously is all well and good when things are going well. It's when the slight dips come, you see how a manager can handle that. We've had a minor dip with Newcastle, and Eddie Howe just remained really, really calm and composed and measured, and that's fantastic to see. And long may that continue as well. He's not an emotional kind of manager who's going to have these outbursts. He's not like Kevin Keegan wore his heart on his sleeve completely, didn't he? And some of the emotional press conferences and statements that came from Kevin Keegan when he was time. We loved it at the time, just to quote a phrase we did. We absolutely loved it. And you want to see a little bit of passion and a little bit of that from your manager. I know people don't like, or certain people don't like Jurgen Klopp. I think he's fantastic for the game. I think he taps into the emotion and the passion and the fervour around the Liverpool fans, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And equally, I don't think there's anything wrong with the way Eddie Howe approaches it as well. It's different people, different characters, different managers. But Newcastle got a real good one in Eddie Howe, and I'm sure he'll keep a level head and composure until the end of the season.
Yeah, I would agree, mate. I think so, and it's going to be an exciting run in for all the right reasons. It's going to be an exciting run in at the top end of the table. Next, BT says, I do hope that Botman's illness, which forced him to miss out on the Holland's last two matches, will not prevent him from playing this Sunday. Have you had any updates, mate, on some of the walking wounded, or we're going to have to wait for Eddie Howe's press conference?
Yeah, I think we'll have to wait. I've not heard anything myself personally, so we'll have to probably wait and see later on in the week. It's that the Dutch illness situation was a real strange one, and like you say, hopefully Sven Botman returns fit and well. If it is a little bit of a bug or whatever, then hopefully there's been a good kind of 10 days for it to work his way out of his system, and he can get back and do a little bit of training before the game on Sunday. The fact that the game is on Sunday means that there's a little bit extra time for recovery and for training as well. So hopefully he comes through fine. Looks like a lot of the other players. Alexander Isak looks like he's come through his 2 games relatively unscathed as well. You never know until they get back into the training camp and get back onto the training ground and see how they return and how they react. But hopefully there's a clean bill of health, and that the players who've been away are nicely refreshed and come back fit and raring to go. Obviously, you've got Joe Linton who's free from suspension as well now. So fingers crossed there's a good, strong squad available for Sunday's game, because it's a massive, massive game.
Yeah, it is. We'll come to that towards the end of the show. BT also says, should Eddie Howe consider re-signing Dummett and Karius in the summer?
Oh, look, not for me personally. Not for me. But I think there's more to just what you see on the pitch. There's more to just what you see on the pitch during matches. You've got a manager like Eddie Howe will take into account everything that a player contributes to a squad behind the scenes in training, during the week, within the camp, within the changing room. You need players as well who will be squad players. Unfortunately, that not every player is going to be able to play, and you need good characters around the team and around the squad who are a little bit more accepting of their position within the squad. So are Paul Dummett and Loris Karius going to challenge for first team places and going to be regular starters for Newcastle next season? No, I don't think that will be the case. But do they have something to contribute elsewhere within the squad? In terms of their characters and personalities and what they contribute. I don't know, because you don't see that. You don't see that work that goes on Monday to Friday on the training ground or in the canteen or in the change rooms or on the training pitch. You don't see that. That might be part of the thinking when a manager comes to re-sign a player. But if you were looking at it from a purely football point of view, from a purely are they going to contribute to the first team next season, then you would have to say no.
Yeah, I would agree, mate, as well. I can't see them staying on. BT says it might be wise to keep Dummett around, even if he's not going to play, because we will need to name 4 players who have come through the academy if we qualify for Europe. That's an interesting point.
It is, yeah. You need your homegrown players. You absolutely do need your homegrown players. I think Newcastle will probably have enough, but yeah, it's another thing that will have to be taken into consideration. In terms of the rules and the regulations of players coming through. Obviously, you've got plenty that have come through the academy at the minute. Not plenty, but you've got a half decent number in terms of academy players that have developed through. With your Sean Longstaffs and your Elliot Andersons and people like that, and if they do get into Europe, you would expect to see 1 or 2 youngsters make a little bit more of a step up, whether it's Lewis Miley or your Joe Lewis or people like that. So there will be options, but like I say, it's not just about what happens on the pitch between kind of 3 p.m. and 4:45 on a Saturday afternoon. It's the whole situation around what players contribute. Do they work really well with the younger players? As there coaching rules, is there mentor type rules that exist within the club? Are they part of a leadership group? There's so much stuff that happens behind the scenes that we're not kind of privy to. We see what happens on a match day. But yeah, Paul Dummett, for example, has been an absolutely fantastic servant to Newcastle. He's been really unlucky with injuries over the latter part of his career. Don't think he's ever let anybody down when he has played. He might want to go somewhere where he's going to play regular. He might want to go and think, well, I've only maybe got a couple of seasons left or whatever. I need to play games. So it'll be an interesting conversation and some big decisions for Eddie Howe in the summer, with those who are out of contract, but also those who are winding down their contracts as well.
Yeah, I agree, mate. Okay, John says Botman's probably our player of the season. With respect to Dummett and Karius, they've done their bit, but are probably not our future. That said, I'm a big Dummett fan. John also says, should we be concerned that 3 of our current back 4 are past 30? This might be where financial fair play falls down. It's supposed to stop clubs folding, but in reality can seriously hinder progress of some clubs. Has been a concern of mine, I've got to be honest. It's an aging back 4. You mentioned Harry Kane there, potentially having another 5 years. It can work for forward, but centre halves, centre backs, defenders in general, it's a bit more of a struggle.
Yeah, and I think that's Newcastle are fully, aware of that, and that's one of the reasons why they are looking for probably a right-sided centre half who's a younger a younger player. Obviously, you know, Jamal Lascelles is, I think, pushing 30 now, isn't he? And Fabian Schär's 31. So they do want a right-sided centre half who can you know, give them another maybe 6, 7, 8 years once he signs. A bit like what's you've got Sven Botman, who's been a fantastic addition and is still a young man and has got potential to grow and to stay at the club for a long period of time. So they definitely are looking at kind of bringing in the age average of the squad down. I think if you look at Newcastle's average age of their squad is one of the highest ones in the Premier League at the minute. I think it's around the 27, 28 mark, which is obviously top end, and they want to bring that down maybe by a couple of years. And that'll be part of the kind of the process when they're looking at which players to target in the summer.
Yeah, okay. BT says, does the conversation between Trippier and Saka means that Saka will join us in 2024? And besides, his father is a Newcastle supporter. You were at Wembley, Ross. Did you see that conversation? Did you manage to witness anything?
I didn't witness anything. I witnessed an absolutely outstanding performance by Bukayo Saka as well. I wasn't privy to any little conversations between Saka and Trippier. What a player Saka is. He's absolutely top jaw, by the way. His touch, his movement, his ability to roll players, his end product, which he's developed. You know, you look at the goals and assists that he's got for Arsenal this season and for England this season. Phenomenal talent. Still a young player. If he continues the way he's going, he's going to be exceptional. Love to see him at Newcastle. Ain't going to happen.
Okay, that's a strong no from Ross. I've just stuck a link in the chat, Ross. You often send us something that comes from the Chronicle. Alexander Isak battling Newcastle United teammates for monthly award after goal-laden return. Tell us about this link, mate.
Yeah, so we're rolling out a Player of the Month poll. Obviously, at the end of every month, it's a new thing that we're just trying to develop on as part of our kind of our offering to readers to engage with readers a bit more and to get your views, to get your opinions on your votes on what you think is good with the club and who deserves the praise. So the Player of the Month is something that we've rolled out across our kind of network and done a Newcastle version. Yeah, and you can go on and vote for who you think is the Player of the Month. It's been a decent march for Newcastle after the cup final. Disappointment, bounce back. There's been some good players. We've shortlisted it down to 3, and you get a chance to vote. I know who I would vote for, but I don't want to sway anybody when it comes to voting. But I think there's one outstanding there's a couple of outstanding candidates, but yeah, get yourself in there and have a vote.
Yeah, have a vote. The link is in the chat if you want to have a go now. Chipper says, how are Everton getting away with financial fair play twice in the past 12 months? Yet again, very little punishment. I'm not sure whether they've got away with it yet, Ross. I mean, they're under investigation, as are Manchester City. It'll be interesting to watch how that develops, won't it? Especially with Newcastle, constantly going on about financial fair play and, being, concerned about it, and others seem to be, allegedly blatantly, breaking the rules. But we'll wait and see what happens with that, I guess. And then we can probably give a further comment.
Yeah, look, absolutely, Steve. I think, they haven't got away with it. They've been referred by the Premier League to a kind of an independent commission. The FA, the Premier League, are alleging that Everton have breached the financial fair play rules. Goes back to last season. I don't know what more people kind of want at this stage. We're aware, everybody's aware of FFP and the rules and the regulations. It is very complicated, obviously, and Everton and Man City will be arguing their case that they haven't breached the regulations. The Premier League are alleging that they have breached them. So the Premier League, you can say what you like about them, but they're trying to follow the rules. They're trying to clamp down on clubs. They're trying to they're trying to challenge them. They're referring them to independent commissions who will then look into them, and then these cases will develop as they go by. It's difficult to say too much about it at this point, obviously, but the Premier League clearly feel that Everton have breached the FFP rules, and they are taking them to task. It could ultimately, end up in some sort of points deduction or a transfer ban or whatever it might be. There's some sort of fines and all sorts. So it's going to be a real interesting one, this one, to follow the Everton one as well, because obviously they escaped relegation last season and Burnley went down. Burnley and Leeds have both complained about Everton's finances as well, so that's increased the pressure on the Premier League too. So if they are found to have breached it, someone like Burnley might have a real case for kind of compensation after their relegation.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, halfway through the show, time for the ads. Big thanks to all our sponsors. Thanks to Skips and Bins. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria, and you can find them at mrvickys.co.uk. Email info@mrvickys.co.uk and place an order by phoning 01768 210 102. Thanks to Fruy Vita Getaways. Book your holidays or short breaks in the UK or around the world with them. Let them find your happy place. Abta and Atol registered. You can contact them by emailing fruyvitagetaways@gmail.com. Call or text 0792 842 7895 and join their Facebook group at Fruy Vita Getaways. Thanks to Media Arts for all the technical help and videos that they do. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle. If you want to join the channel, click join and you can see the various rates that you can pay to help support us. If you want to join by subscribing, hit the subscribe button. That is free. Hit the thumb up under the video to help the algorithm, and click share to other social media platforms. If you do subscribe, we do give you a free car sticker. Just email John at nufcmatters.com and he will post you one out. If you want to join the cult, which is a one-off payment of £25, where you get a scarf, a pen, a cup, and entry into the monthly draw, then go to nufcmatters.com and look for the cult membership, or put your phone over this smart code and it will take you straight there. We are available as well as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and the rest. And we do support the food bank on this channel. So if you want to make a virtual donation from anywhere in the world, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and put your money into the match day bucket. We've got some events coming up. First off in April the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th and 11th. Peter Beardsley Soccer School is back for ages 6 to 16 years. Go to peterbeardsleysoccerschool.com for more information. An evening with John Anderson at the Time House Surf Cafe, Tuesday the 18th of April. Book your tickets direct from the venue. An evening with Frank Clark and John Gibson 2 nights later. Thursday the 20th of April at the Irish Centre. Tickets from nufcmatters.com. An evening with Nobby Solano at Laurels in Whitley Bay is May the 11th. So contact the venue direct if you want to go to that event. And we've got our NUFC Matters end of season party, which is the 27th of May at 7 o'clock. Tickets are a tenner from nufcmatters.com. An evening with Rob Lee at Louis Liquor Store, 1st of June. And tickets direct from the venue. And an evening with Rob Lee, Lee Clark and John Beresford, Friday the 2nd of June at the Grand Hotel Gosforth, which is in aid of the Healing Tour charity. And you can get your tickets direct from them at the healingtour.org.uk website. Just click events. A little bit later in the year, an evening with Gavin Peacock, July the 10th. Tickets from nufcmatters.com for that one. And if you like your boxing, a night of champions featuring Frank Bruno, Ricky Hatton, Nigel Benn and Joe Calzaghe. Tickets for that one from goldstarpromotions.com. Okay, I've stuck another link in the chat there, and it's something we talked about last night on Fans Forum. Safe standing is being announced. It's coming to St James's Park. It's going to be in the Strawberry Corner. So from our perspective as fans, the club did speak to us via emails, members, season ticket holders, anyone whose details they had, they gave up people an opportunity to respond. There was a ballot for supporters then to go forward and have a meeting at the club. So communication was there. They did speak to people. 75% wanted safe standing, 25% didn't. They've picked an area which predominantly is an area that was highlighted as an area best for it. What's your thoughts, Ross?
I'm all for it, Steve. I think it's a great addition. Something, certainly that a lot of fans and groups have been pushing for. And it's good to see it now being, the club's obviously listened and engaged with the fan base and listened to them and acted kind of accordingly. We've got a poll there in the Chronicle story about what fans think about it as well. So again, feel free to engage with that one as well. But personally, I think it's great. I know people have obviously had issues with standing before, but this is safe standing. It's done. It follows all the regulations. I was in the safe standing section at Wembley for the cup final, and thoroughly enjoyed it. And it was fine. No issues at all. A lot of fans these days stand at games anyhow. So if you can make it safer, if you can make it so that there's a specific section for those who do want to stand, and hopefully it'll help to the atmosphere, it'll help to the match day experience. I'm all in favour for it, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, I am as well. It's not something I would personally do at a home game. I've got to be perfectly honest. Chip as says, I am for and against safe standing. I'm for it, as sitting down for 90 minutes is quite boring, but sometimes standing you can get idiots tanked up with drinks. So I'm mixed. I mean, it is something which people have asked for. I guess as well, those people who don't want to stand in that corner will get the opportunity to move to the equivalent seat on the far side, on the opposite side of the Gallagher. There is always going to be somebody who's upset with this, Ross. That people don't like to be displaced from a seat where they've always sat, but predominantly that corner stands, doesn't it, throughout the game anyway? That's why they've picked it.
Yeah, absolutely. You're 100% right, Steve. You can't keep everybody happy all of the time, and we've seen over previous years come back decades where fans have been displaced and had to move seats and change, and people don't like changing, and people, like you say, become quite protective of their seat, of where they're part of the stadium, and I get that. I really do get that. I would probably be the same if it was me, but ultimately the club's got to try and progress. The club's got to change. The club's got to move forward and move with the times, and sometimes these difficult decisions have to be made. Nobody's going to miss out on tickets, obviously, and or seats or season tickets. So it will be a bit of a change for some people, but the club has got to keep progressing, and as long as they're doing it in consultation with the fans, as long as they keep engaging and consulting with the supporters and doing things the right way, then I don't think we can have too much cause for complaint.
No, I would say that it's it's a good idea, and well done the club for communicating with the supporters. When standing, are you assigned to one spot, or do you move around each time to an available space? You're assigned to a spot, I believe.
Yeah, that's my understanding of it. You pretty much have your seat, your spot, which is yours for that game, for that season, for whatever. It'll be just like I assume it'll be just like a season ticket, but except you'll be on a rail seat, as they call them, the standing seats, as opposed to another seat. So it's not like the old days when you're on the terrace and you can move around and you can go to a different part, and you can go, you can be in one corner one game and the next corner the next, or even within the same game you can move around. It's very different to that. You're assigned to a certain space that's been allocated to you. So yeah, look, it's something to try. It's something we might do this for a season or 2 seasons, and it might prove to be something that the fans don't like, and there's not the appetite for it, or there's additional concerns I'm sure that the club will address. But as a club, Newcastle have to listen to the fans, have to try to make that match day experience better for everyone and for and safer for everybody, but accommodate different people's wishes and needs, and have to keep trying to progress. And that's what the club is doing here. So I don't think we should be knocking them.
No, definitely not. And, you know, as I say, communication is very important. We're banged on about it for years and years. Everybody wanted, everybody wanted communication, but, we've got it now, and fair play to the club for doing that. Is winning the Champions League more important than increasing the capacity at St James's Park, says BT?
No, I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I think the most important, well, not the most important thing, but the club has to keep progressing. The club has to keep developing, and I think increasing the capacity at St James's Park has to be right at the top of the priority list for the owners and for the club as a whole. I think it'll make the club more attractive and sustainable on a long-term basis. You're looking after your loyal fans, customers, whatever you want to call them. You're getting more people into the club. You then also opening it out to different supporter groups in terms of hopefully bringing more kids and get that next generation coming through. I think winning the Champions League, for example, is particularly a short-term measure. It's something that would be utterly fantastic, obviously, but it's very here and now. I think for the club to grow and be sustainable and get into Champions League finals, year in, year out, you've got to develop the whole project, and that includes increasing the capacity at St James's Park. Ultimately, it shouldn't be one or the other, though. It should be, can these things go hand in hand? Can the club develop St James's, increase the capacity there, as well as maintaining success on the pitch at the same time? And that'll be the challenge for the ownership at over the next 5-10 years. Yeah,
definitely will be, mate. It's going to take time. Things can't be rushed. That's the problem, Ian Toon Trader says, another channel mentioned the hierarchy will sell Bruno if they get 100 million plus. Surely this isn't true, as he is irreplaceable for us in our current situation, and we need to keep him to attract others. I would agree that he's irreplaceable at this moment in time. Will he be irreplaceable in the future? Who knows, depending on how much Newcastle spend, invest, etc. They're not going to sell Bruno anytime soon, though, are they, Ross?
No, don't think so. Absolutely no point. You could sell him for 100 million, but you'd have to probably spend that to replace him. So what would be the point in terms of Newcastle bought him for pushing 40 million. He's probably worth potentially worth double that these days. It's certainly 60-70 million. If they were to look to sell him, now, if you want to go out and buy a Declan Rice or a Jude Bellingham or whoever, you're going to have to pay real top money. So I don't see the point in selling him. He is irreplaceable currently for Newcastle. He's probably one of maybe 2 or 3 players in that team who you absolutely need fit and firing and available every game, because he's that important. So yeah, and the club's ambitious. The club don't want to be a selling club. They don't want to be a club that goes back to the days of selling their top talent and development like that. There's no need for it. So I'd be absolutely astounded if they sold Bruno certainly over the next 3 or 4 years. I think the only issue that would potentially, and I've mentioned it before, the only issue that potentially rise with Bruno is if the club can't match his ambition. If the club doesn't progress on the pitch and he's ambitious enough and good enough to want to be playing Champions League football, to be challenging for trophies, to winning silverware. And we all hope that'll be with Newcastle. But that would be the only time I would think that there might become an issue with Bruno, is if he feels he needs to move on to further his career and win titles. But let's hope that's with Newcastle United.
Yeah, let's hope so. I'm I'm excited by the future, and Bruno's got to be part of that. Would you take Chamberlain with him being a free agent soon, says Tom Dixon?
No, never. No. Next question.
John says, if you're allocated a place, what if you're 5 foot and the bloke in front of you is Dan Burns size? Good point, John.
Take your step ladders.
Take your step ladders. I see we have 6 players out of contract this summer. Does that mean at least 6 in to replace them, Ross?
Potentially, yeah. But it doesn't necessarily work like that. I think they'll always go for quality over quantity. I don't think the size of Newcastle's squad is necessarily the issue at the minute. I think there's enough players in the squad. It's just not having enough players of a certain level. I don't think it's necessarily that you're struggling for bodies. You can fill that bench with 8, 9, 10 players every game pretty much. It's just the levels of those players. It's the standards of those players there's a big drop off from your first 13, 14, 15 players down to your next 10, down to your 20, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th kind of players on that list. There's a heck of a drop off. So it'll be for me, moving the players out who are out of contract and into Eddie Howe doesn't see us having a future in the club, and then adding 4 or 5 more in the summer, 3, 4, 5 more, but making sure that they are quality players who will come in and improve the squad.
Yeah, I think there will be a bigger transfer window this time round than we've seen in the last 2 windows. Ross, who's going to win the Northern League? Bishop Auckland, Ashington, or my hometown, Newton Aycliffe, says Sparky D.
It's really tight at the top. So we play Ashington tonight. We can play Ashington tonight, and we'll be hoping to put a dent in their title bid, their promotion party. We beat Bishop Auckland last Tuesday as well. Put a bit of a dent in their title bid. So it's going to go down to the wire. Newton Aycliffe, Sparky, your hometown club. They're in pole position at the minute. Everybody keeps waiting for them to slip up, but they keep going. It was a big game on Saturday between them and Ashington, which was a 1-1 each draw. So Newton Aycliffe are certainly in pole position, and if I was a betting man, I'd be sticking my money there, Sparky. All
right, buying Brighton's young forward is a better investment than Harry Kane. Plus, we could try the Juventus centre forward, says George. Ian, talking about Bruno, says I wouldn't sell him for any money. He's happy here, and we love him. We do not sell our best players. Darren agrees with you wholeheartedly. No to Chamberlain. Les says telling point is that Bruno's family love it up here, and I can't see that happening in London. Ian agrees, saying agree, Staples. Bruno's dad wouldn't have it either. He's good to us lot. And Blue Rhythm Boy, don't get fooled by names like that in this chat. But I'll read it out for you just for the hilarity. Urinator from the Bulgarian League. Very good, Blue Rhythm Boy. Other channels may well be fooled by that kind of mischief. Croc the Crocodile. Lads, I've seen an interview with Isaac in which he introduced himself as Alexander Isaac and not Isaac. Surely he would have pronounced his name correctly. Now, this is interesting because it's not until it gets broached with the player or when you hear the player speak. But we were always led to believe, certainly by media people, that he preferred Isaac. So if it's Isaac now, happy days. But that's interesting. Ross, have you pronounced it Isaac? Isaac, I've got to be honest, I haven't really paid much attention to how people have pronounced it, other than maybe Stu, who kept saying Isaac on the channel. What about you?
I think I probably said Isaac initially, and then I probably changed it to Isaac, like most people. I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? Tomato. I think it always reminds us of back in the 90s when we signed David Ginola, and everybody called him David Ginola for a long period, and then all of a sudden it became David Ginola, just because of the French pronunciation, isn't it? So I'm sure Alexander Isaac or Isaac isn't probably too fussed about the pronunciation of his name, as long as and we aren't, as long as he keeps banging them goals in.
Yeah. Tripper says he'd rather have Helen Chamberlain than Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. And yeah, I think a few people would agree with that. Another topic we spoke about on the fans forum last night is the leaked strip. We seem to have a few leaked strips, don't we? And some of them tend out to be genuine. This was the latest one, Ross. Another Castori top. No confirmation or denial as to whether this is true or false, but it's another green top. I mean, that in itself causes debate because of the Saudi connection, etc. But it's 80% owned by PIF. Why aren't they going to have tops which maybe have a bit of green in, or all green in this occasion? But what's your thought on that? I quite like it in the sense that it's, some people don't like bland, boring tops. I just like sometimes just like a throwback to the old straight. It's a bold top. It's green. I like the color green. It's not a bad top, but what's your thought if that is a Newcastle United top of the future?
It looks okay. I'm always a little bit wary of green, and I might sound daft here, but I'm always wary that green sometimes can get lost within the kind of the pitch almost. I know that might sound a little bit daft, but I'm not a massive fan of green as a color on a kit. I'd like something that stands out a little bit more, but I'll be brutally honest, I'm not a massive kind of kit connoisseur. I like what I like, but I'm not kind of overly precious about stuff as long as it's not hideous or whatever. But it's this time of year, Steve. It's great. You get the kit leaks, you get everybody getting excited about the new strips, or you get people being excited one way or the other. There's always a bit of controversy around them as well. From a journalism, from a media perspective, it's a good time. Anytime you do a kid story about this is what it might be, or this is what it is, you get loads of people reading it, you get loads of people engaging with it and commenting. So it is a real topic of kind of conversation among fan bases, not just in Newcastle fans, but we've seen it all over the place. Anytime we do a kid story for whether it be Arsenal or Liverpool or Norwich or whoever it is, it always does really, really well. So it's one of them big talking points among fan bases.
Yeah. Isaac fits better with Bruno in the middle song, says John. Tell him that. If Everton are not dropped a serious amount of points, financial fair play is dead. Chipper says, Castori are getting desperate for me, doing anything to try and be kept past this season. Well, they're certainly churning them out, aren't they? That's for certain. Calvin Phillips is eager to seek a new challenge away from Manchester City and a struggle to meet expectations. Is there any chance we could sign him on a cut price deal, Ross, do you think?
There was an interesting article in Calvin Phillips. Yeah, he is a player that Newcastle, would have on their long list of centre midfielders. I think. I think he's personally speaking, I think he's a very, very good player. I think he would be an ideal signing in many ways for Newcastle. He can play that kind of holding role in the midfield, which might free somebody like Bruno up to play a little bit higher. He's got an excellent range of passing. He can dictate play. He's got a good engine and can get himself about. He's obviously played under Marcelo Bielsa and learned a lot from him. He's a northern lad. He's obviously a Leeds lad and a big Leeds fan and supporter. And I'm sure if he is going to leave City at some point, then Leeds might be his preferred destination. He would like to go back to his hometown club, but they're obviously in a different situation to where Newcastle are at the minute. So I really like Calvin Phillips. I think he's a really good player, and I think he would be an excellent addition to Newcastle's midfield.
Blue Rhythm Boy, I would say yes. He says, do you think the club are asking Castori to make Saudi-coloured stripes, or Castori doing it to promote their own brand? I think it's Castori promoting their own brand, mate. They've just churned out tops. And I mean, we know that Newcastle potentially looking at another kit manufacturer. So I think they're just making hay while the sun shines, because why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? You're involved with the club when the biggest takeover goes through in its history. And, Newcastle got to Wembley this year. Potentially Champions League positions this year. They're doing everything they can to get tops out, and clearly they're selling. People are buying them. So I think it's them rather than the club asking them to make controversial tops. Mark Todd says, Botman, Bruno, Isaac are the sort of players we should be buying. young, skillful, brilliant attitude and ambition. Buying overpriced tat, especially from the greedy six, should be avoided. Good point, Mark, isn't it, Ross, that he's making? I mean, and I made this point the other day. Newcastle United are a different club now. We're not buying cast-offs from the top six. Gone are the days of buying a Damien Duff from Chelsea or buying, a player, past his sell-by date from Manchester United. Newcastle United are focused on, bringing in the best of young talent, but also bringing in, bigger name players. And look at Anthony Gordon, for example. We've brought him from Everton. They're struggling now, but a few years back, they were challenging the European positions themselves. Newcastle have gone in and taken ultimately one of their best players for a cut price deal, in my mind. 40 million, I think, was cheap for him.
Yeah, look, that's going to be the profile of the player that Newcastle want to bring in. They're going to. We've talked earlier on about bringing in younger players, so they want to get the average age of the squad down because it is still a bit high. So they want to bring in players that are younger, but also have potential to develop, but at the same time aren't players necessarily always for 3 years down the line. There will be a couple of those, like your Garang Coles and one or two others, but they need players who are ready to hit the ground running in the Premier League as well. But it's got to be a certain profile, players who've got who are on, like you say, on past their sell-by date. So that kind of profile of Bruno Botman, Isaac, however you want to say it, they will be the kind of a similar profile that Newcastle will, I think, move more towards in the next couple of transfer windows. They had to bring in certain type of players in last year, in terms of getting experienced players like Kieran Trippier, Dan Burn, even Nick Pope, Matt Targett, those types of players who had a lot of. Chris Wood was another one who were late 20s, early 30s, who could hit the ground running and get the club up to a certain level. They absolutely need that. But I think moving forward over the next couple of transfer windows, they'll be looking for players in the early 20s who've got potential to grow and also a sell-on value as well, whether we want like that or not. To be sustainable as well. Newcastle with FFP, Newcastle will have to sell some players at some point as well. So you don't want to be selling players just for a couple of million when at the end of their careers, because it doesn't help as much towards building the club and being able to reinvest in players further down the line as well. So yeah, definitely younger, hungrier players, I think, will be the profile in the summer.
Yeah, I definitely think that would be the case as well, mate. And look, Newcastle are going to get it right in the transfer market, mate. No doubt about it. I think Pep is doing to Phillips what he did with Grealish last season, betting him in and then playing him next season. Les says, doesn't Phillips have a shoulder issue that could be very serious if it goes again? John thinks there's off the field concerns, of course, which again could be an issue. We know that Eddie Howe likes to keep everybody, on a level on and off the pitch. Morning, Gerald. Have the owners not shown due diligence when buying the club from Ashley? Deals tied up to Fun 88 and Castoria and trouble getting rid of past advertising. I don't think it's a case of not doing due diligence, mate. I think it's a case of Mike Ashley had these things tied up. I think it was very transparent. They knew the situation they were walking into, but they wanted the club, and they've got the club at a cheap price. When you look at the cost that's been bandied around from Manchester United, for example. New kit every week from them. As much as I appreciate them making things without Fun 88 on, it's overkill now, says Blue Rhythm Boy. Interesting seeing the difference on how people talk about McTominay and how they did Gallagher and Loftus-Cheek. If the price is right, we need the depth. Yeah, but Scott McTominay had been linked again this week, Ross.
Yes, I think we spoke about him last week. I think again, I'm not against Scott McTominay coming in. I think he's a solid player. I don't think he, would he push Newcastle on that next level? Maybe not. But what he would do is he would add Premier League experience. He'd add a bit of quality. He'd add European experience, and he'd add depth to that squad. Newcastle have only got 4 midfielders currently, really, in the squad at the minute. It's very light on midfielders, so they're going to need to bring a couple in, and probably a 6 and an 8/10 positions. So they will need to add some depth in there. But they do like Conor Gallagher as well. He's another one, and with Chelsea's financial issues potentially rearing their head and the need to sell players in the summer. There might be some movement there. So, Eddie Howe and Newcastle have always gone, or in the main, gone for players who've got Premier League experience. Anthony Gordon, Kieran Trippier, Matt Targett, Nick Pope, Chris Wood. It goes on and on. They want players who can hit the ground running. So it'll be an interesting summer. There'll be a load of names bandied around, as there always is. But you've got to trust the scouting process, trust the management team to bring the right ones in, because the record so far has been pretty good.
Darren Lee, we'll give him the last question today. He says, rumour Howe and Ashworth are not seeing eye to eye on summer signings. Any truth in this, Ross?
Not heard anything of that sort whatsoever, so I wouldn't be able to kind of comment.
I've heard those rumours flying around, I've got to be honest, Darren, but the rumours, nothing substantiated in my mind. So, until we hear otherwise, then we'll wait and see. Okay, Newcastle take on Manchester United this coming weekend, and this is going to be feisty. This is going to be a humdinger. There's no doubt about that. It's a 4:30 kickoff live on Sky. All tickets are long since sold out. Supermac will be at the Dog and Parrot 1:45, and then at 7. And Gibbo and Ando will be at Pumphrey's at 3. I think that's what time they're kicking off. Stu Atwell is refereeing. Andy Madeley is on VAR. How do you see this one going, Ross?
Oh, it's a biggie, isn't it? It's a real big game. I'm certainly, from a Newcastle perspective, a lot more confident going into it than I was the cup final a month or so ago. I think Newcastle are in better shape, in a better position. But we saw with the Carabao Cup final how strong and how organised and disciplined and professional and good that Manchester United team can be. Obviously, since then they've had a couple of rocky results. It's certainly the Liverpool thrashing and I think the draw against Southampton. Not so they haven't exactly been on firing on full cylinders themselves, but they've got a fantastic team with some fantastic players. Casemiro being out is a big boost for Newcastle. The fact that he's not available is huge. It's a game I think that Newcastle can get something out of. I really do. Hopefully everybody comes back from the international break fit and firing and well. In some ways it came at the wrong time for Newcastle because of the form that they were just starting to hit before the break came, but in another way it came at the right time because it allowed one or two players to rest up who were carrying knocks and niggles. So I think it'll be an absolute humdinger of a game. It'll be an absolute belter. Hopefully the atmosphere is raucous and as loud as what we know it can be. And I'm going to go for a 2-1 Newcastle win.
2-1 Newcastle win. We will see. Blue Ribbon Boy says, now I'm going to put Simon Jordan on TalkSport after you lads. It'll be a downgrade. Thank you very much, mate. Ross, as always, pleasure to have you on, and look forward to seeing you again next week, mate. Have a good week.
You too, Steve. Cheers, everyone.